Welcome to today's TLC. Whether you found this podcast on my website, through the emails I send, or simply from a friend, I'm glad that you've decided to add some TLC today. My friends, I cannot stop thinking about the craziness that happened last week. If you tuned into my last podcast episode, you heard about some crazy things that happened to my family when we got stuck at a rural campground just outside of Big Bend National Park. It was a 3-day adventure where we were stuck with 20 people in the middle of a desert with no way to get out because the road had been flooded. And although it was scary, I have learned so many life lessons that just keep popping up in different deep ways every time I think about them. So pardon me for doing another episode about that trip, but I just have to share a lesson that has been so tangible to me. I'm not going to tell all the details about the trip because you can hear that in my other episode, but there was this moment on the first morning where we realized that we couldn't leave our camp when I felt myself shift from denial and resistance and no way am I staying here to, okay, we're going to be here for a while. So what do we want to do next? And that shift was more than just a mental experience. When I think back at what happened, I tangibly, literally felt my body change. I knew that we were in a survival experience and that we didn't know how long our food would last or how much water we'd be able to have in the end. And I physically felt my body adapt. And once I really focused on what I wanted to create instead of resisting what was true, my capacity to meet my situation grew. I accepted what was, let go of the things I couldn't control, and had space to make a crappy situation a lot better. But it took a minute for me to get there. At first, I was so resistant. I remember when they told me that we were going to be there for a while, thinking to myself, I'm going to get out of here. There's no way I'm staying. And that resistance, that negativity that came, spread over my relationship with my children, with the campground. I felt hungry and tired and worn out and irritable, and just this resistant negative energy that made me miserable, and nobody really wanted to be around me. But once I let go of having it be the way I wanted it to be, the magic started to happen. My body physically shifted. I felt myself be less hungry. I wasn't really craving water like I had before, even though we were in the middle of a desert in blazing hot sun. I didn't really feel very bored. I was content to just sit and watch my kids play in the mud for hours. I even had less restroom breaks than I think would be normal for my body. And I didn't really care whether I was snacking or eating something that I liked versus not. I honestly had more space to enjoy what was in front of me and less opinion about it needing to be a certain way. All of these things were simple shifts, but I could feel them in my body changing simply because I mentally chose in to this experience. Have you ever experienced this with a child where you get super clear about what is or isn't an option? They actually respond with more acceptance, more willingness to enjoy the situation. My husband talks all the time about how too many options actually reduce our satisfaction in life. Sometimes we research all of the different possibilities of something because we want to make sure that we get the best one. But then we have this comparison beast in our mind of what we wanted and what we didn't get and what we could have had with something else. And it robs us from the satisfaction of what we chose to get or what we experienced. Studies show that you actually increase your satisfaction if you only have one choice. It's like I'm giving you 2 different popsicles and you're like, oh, do I have a grape one or do I have a cherry one? I don't know, grape or cherry, I don't know. And you eat the cherry one and then you think about the grape one, you're like, I should have gotten grape. Versus someone shows up on a hot day and they hand you a grape popsicle and that's the only option you had and you're so grateful for that grape popsicle and it tastes delicious. Because that's the only option that you had. There's no room for resistance. My body noticed that line in the sand where I said, we can't change this. and it adapted. I also saw this happen in my children. They knew they only had a few options of what to do in the middle of this rural campsite. They could play in the dirt, they could draw pictures in the sand, they could play tag with their brothers, or read a book. That was really about it. We did have some electronics, but they didn't have very much charge, and so they knew that wasn't a big option. And guess what happened because they had less choices? They fought less. They argued with me less. They were more proactive about solving problems for themselves and not trying to make things different than what they were. My picky eater, who never ever wants to eat what we're having for dinner, didn't argue with me. My kid that is always asking me to entertain him just figured it out because he knew what his options were. My kids weren't constantly asking me for snacks or water or treats or when are we going to do this, Mom, or any of that because they knew we were in survival mode and our options were limited. And guess what? They enjoyed it. Even though it wasn't the most ideal situation, they made it work because they knew that was the choice. To the point where the day after we came home, my son, whose birthday was while we were camping, while we were driving him to school, randomly said to me, "Mom, I really liked my birthday camping." He liked that camping experience, even though so many crazy things had happened and it was totally not comfortable. He liked it because he had chosen into that experience. He didn't sit and whine and complain about it. He made the best of what was there, to the point where he's going to fondly remember that trip. Now, I want you to think about a situation in your life where you feel like it's not going the way that you want it to. Where you just feel that resistance, where it just kind of bubbles up inside of you and you just want to resist it. I feel it in my body, like right between my ribs, and it almost like wants to pull in and just feel tight. That resistance, that like, I don't want it to be this way. There's something in your life where you feel that way. It might be one of your in-laws that just drives you crazy, where they just keep doing the thing that you ask them not to do and you just wish that was different. Or it's that child who is unkind to one of your family members and you just wish that you could delete him from their lives and not have to think about them again. Or maybe it's something at work where you just feel like people are not listening or you're not getting the results that you want and you feel disenchanted and deflated. Or maybe it's your best laid plans to have that trip or that project or that goal, and then you start on it and it ends up getting stuck somewhere that you feel hopeless or helpless, like in the middle of the desert, like we did. Whatever it is that you feel that resistance to, that, can't it just be a different way? I want you to just hold it for just a minute in your mind. And ask yourself this question. What if I just chose to let that be okay? Just for a minute. I'm not saying you have to, but just consider what would happen if you stopped trying to control the thing that you can't control. No matter how much we think we can't control other people's behavior. That extended family member that drives us crazy, or the kid who's unkind to our kid, or the person at work who really should be pulling their weight. We can't control these things. We also can't control when the weather comes and messes up our camping trip, or when our tire gets flat when we're trying to go somewhere, or when the best laid plans don't go the way we want them to. There are so many things in life that are unpredictable and uncontrollable, and we feel crazy when we try to predict and control them. What if we just let them be? Let them be the way that they are, and instead of trying to control them, refocus on what we can do, even if the situation doesn't change. There's a woman that I've been coaching where she had this amazing moment that I wish that I could just capture and let you guys see. But she was struggling with this relationship with her husband. And I was talking through with her about why it was so hard for her that her husband kept showing up in this same pattern over and over again. And she kept trying to put down boundaries to make it so that he would act a certain way. And I invited her, instead of focusing on trying to control her husband so that she could feel safe, to let go of where he was at and say, it's okay however he chooses to show up. He is not responsible for your emotions and your actions. As I said that to her, I watched her mind expand. She accepted that her husband had agency to choose and remembered that she did too. When she realized the power that could come when she focused on her own experience instead of trying to change the situation, she felt so free. She said to me, it's like you just opened up a door and the answer was right on the other side of it, but I just couldn't get there. Of course, the answer is focus on me. She accepted the things that she couldn't change and then was empowered to do something instead of resist something. Can you see the pattern? With this woman that I've coached, with my body when I was in this survival situation, even earlier tonight with my own child, who I found playing with Legos in his closet an hour after his bedtime. And he was telling me all of these reasons why he couldn't sleep and his body couldn't calm down. And so he needed to be doing Legos. In that moment, I knew that he thought he had an option to play with Legos. He was not accepting that it was bedtime. So of course his brain was going to go look for something else more pleasurable that he wanted to do. So instead, I set a really clear boundary and said, you don't have to fall asleep, but you cannot get out of your bed. It's not okay to go play Legos in the closet. Unless it's an emergency, you need to stay in your bed. I love you. Good night. And he crawled in bed, and literally 5 minutes later, he was asleep. Because he accepted that it was bedtime and stopped resisting. Imagine what could happen in your relationship with that person you're struggling with if you accepted that they might not ever change and instead focused on how you want to show up no matter what they do. This is not enabling or ignoring. This is advocating for yourself in a way that you can take care of you and stop trying to make your situation or other people responsible for your peace. Once you put clear expectations down and commit to focusing on what you can influence, it drops the drama and natural things start happening to just solve problems, like my body when we were stuck in that campsite. You will naturally find a rhythm that works from inside of you and is more consistent and dependable no matter what happens. When you stop resisting and instead accept what you can't control, you have space to adapt in a way that will provide you what you need from the inside out. What might be possible for you if you have space to allow? You are more adaptable than you think. Ever since I got home from my crazy camping adventure, I have felt motivated to practice remembering what it feels like to choose in and let go of the things that I can't control. Because guess what? I have more joy when I just allow it to be the way it is, and I simplify my choices so my brain can stop trying to find the best solution that is better than where I'm at right now, because that will make you crazy. Let's practice remembering what's ours and choosing in to the full life experience, one crazy moment at a time. All right, my friend, thank you for listening to another episode about my crazy camping experience. And I hope that it will motivate you to practice choosing in to a full life experience, allowing and accepting the things you cannot change, even when life gets a little crazy. You can do this, my friend. Keep shining. Life after therapy can be simple. Come learn how to think light, feel light, and live light at thelightcoach.com. I offer 5 free discovery sessions each week, and one of them is for you. Together, let's discover the joy that's possible in life after therapy.